Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm sorry it's been a while. It's been a good few weeks or so since my last video. But I wanted to give you guys a little bit of a life update as there's a reason why I've not been posting for a good few weeks. And so let's just dive in, let's share. I think it's important to keep you guys up to date with everything that's going on. Not because I feel obligated to, but that this channel is to help you, and hopefully what I have to share today will be helpful. So before I dive in just with some tips and advice that I've been learning myself at the moment, I want to just share a few things that's been happening in my life, which in a way has led me to not post that much recently. So in August, as you guys will be aware if you're regular viewers of the channel, I had my heart operation. I then recovered and I returned to work in September. Now, September was a phased return, which essentially meant that I wasn't working my usual hours, so it felt more manageable. It felt like I was able to cope with the amount of work that I was doing. And then in October, I started working my usual 4 days a week, 9 to 5. And I really started to feel it. At the moment where I work, there is a lot going on. It's a bit of a transition phase. And so I think everyone's feeling quite stressed, to be honest. But there's just been this feeling for me personally of, gosh, I feel like I'm carrying a lot, and not just with work but just with everything in general. For me, September and October have actually been really busy, and as I'm filming this, it's the middle of November and there's been a lot going on in November as well. And so firstly, me and my husband are really in need of a break. At the moment, I'm sat in my in-laws' living room. So me and my husband drove down last night. It's about 4 hours drive down south to get to their house. And we've got about 5 days just here, relaxing, not working, which is amazing. And then in a couple weeks' time, me and my husband are actually flying abroad for about a week and a half, just to have a much needed break, just away from life, away from work, away from our own country, just a complete break. And we're so excited for that, and then we come home and we've got about a week or so and then it's Christmas and we're off again. So we've got a lot of breaks coming up and we really are in need of it. One of the reasons for me personally why I'm really in need of this break is because I have been having some like physical health symptoms that are making me aware that I'm experiencing a lot of stress, that I'm internalizing a lot of stress. One thing that I've mentioned in the past is that I do experience migraines from time to time. And in the last couple of months, I've definitely been experiencing more migraines than I ever have. And that's a concern. That's something that I'm a bit worried about. I'm actually being referred to neurology to see what they can suggest. Because of my heart health, it's a bit more complicated. They can't just put me on medication, without thorough checks. And so I'm glad that I'm having that referral, but it could be another couple of months or so until I actually see anyone. So I'm trying to figure out, well, how do I manage it in the meantime? And so I think for me, that's one of the reasons why I'm aware that I really need these breaks, because my body is telling me that I need them. And I want to just share with you guys just 4 things that I'm learning to do at the moment to help me navigate this season that is slightly stressful. The first thing that I want to share is the importance of rest. So, like I just said, we're in need of rest. And we actually have booked this few days or so that we have off work now. We booked that off about a month or so ago. And I'm really glad that we did, because I don't think we realised how much we needed a break. And one thing that I will say is that when you start to notice physical symptoms in your body, that is a huge reminder that you need to slow down. If you're getting migraines or if you're struggling with sleep or feeling tired and sluggish a lot of the time, or your appetite's all over the place, so your mental well-being seems all over the place, then it's probably a sign that there's something going on deeper, that there's something that really needs to be addressed. And as human beings, we're experts in sticking a plaster over a massive wound that needs further treatment. We're not very good at addressing the root cause. And for me, slowing down allows me to obviously take the time to rest, but also really take the time to think, why am I feeling this way? What have I been doing over the last 2 months that have resulted in me feeling the way that I feel now? Or is there anything in my life that's making me unhappy or making me feel stressed? And if so, what can I do about that? It's often not until we slow down that we actually realize these particular things in our lives are not healthy and we need to do something about it. So that's just my first tip. If you're feeling a little bit burnt out, like these physical symptoms are showing, to just book some time off work and just take time to actually rest, let your body rest, let your mind rest, and slow down and actually, provide opportunity to think about what's actually causing it deep down, what's that root cause. The second thing that I want to share is to seek support. So if you're dealing with stress, if you're dealing with burnout, maybe, you've had that restful time and you've discerned, some root causes, don't be afraid to ask for help. Like, I'm going to be truly transparent and share that I'm starting counseling next week. I'm not embarrassed to share that. I think it's important to be transparent. Mental health and stress and anxiety are real things. And I know for me personally, I've been through so much in the last 2 years that most people my age don't really tend to go through. And so I'm just becoming very much aware that that means that I may need to do certain things that maybe other people my age aren't doing to get through some of the challenges that I've had to face. I've gone through 2 years of waiting, of dealing with anxiety, of health pressure, of feeling like my life was on pause at times. And that naturally creates a lot of anxiety and a lot of stress. And I wish honestly that I would have continued counseling. I did do counseling about a year ago, and for the last like 9 months or so, I've not done any counseling, which I think is a bit silly if I'm being truly honest. I think I should have continued because I think I really did need it. And I'm glad that I'm in a way brave enough to admit, Helen, you need to have this now. It's not embarrassing, it's not a failure. It's actually, winning, and it's doing well, and succeeding in life is admitting what you really need and implementing things that ultimately will help you to succeed. It's not about a fake front of trying to admit that everything's okay when it's not. And so, seek that support if you need it, because we can't do everything in our own strength. I'm a Christian, as regular viewers will probably know, and without God, I wouldn't have been able to get through the last 2 years. I'm 100%. But the wonderful thing about the way that God creates human beings is that it creates us to have certain skills that we can then help other people with. He's gifted my counselor with skills that will help me be a stronger woman, have a stronger faith, and be a better wife and just an individual in general. And so don't be afraid to seek that support. The third thing that I'm doing that I think you should be doing if you're struggling with stress is to really prioritize your health. And when I say health, I mean physical health, mental health, every aspect of health, to make sure that you're prioritizing it. If I'm being truly honest, the last couple of months, to say that I was so buzzed about having my heart surgery and getting back into good health, the last month especially, I've barely gone to the gym. My diet's not been the best. I think I have put a little bit of weight on, and I'm not beating myself up about that. I know that I'm not overweight, but I'm aware that I want to be looking after my health, and I'm aware that exercise releases endorphins that makes me feel better, and that eating a nutritious meal makes me feel good. I do struggle with irritable bowel syndrome, and so making sure that I have a clean diet is actually really important, not just physically, but obviously mentally as well. IBS can really trigger anxiety and stress, if not treated well and not managed well. And I'm just aware of that. Our body is one whole. We need to look after it all, not just specific little things. So, prioritizing your health is so important. And the final thing that I'm learning to do is remove unnecessary pressure. And if I'm honest, it's one of the reasons why I've not done YouTube in a good few weeks or written a blog, because I was just mentally, honestly, in a bit of a crap place. And I was like, even though I like doing YouTube and I like writing, it's just something else on my mind and I can't deal with it right now. I can't process it. I can't create things that I'm proud of until I feel like I'm in a better place mentally. And that's not me saying that you need to be 100% healthy to do good things. That isn't what I'm saying. But for me personally, I was like, what's putting pressure on me that doesn't need to be there? And so I would just challenge you, are you adding things on, in your life that don't really need to be there in this particular season? Things come and go. I think especially for women, we often feel like we need to do everything all at once. And I was watching a really interesting podcast the other day that said that we can do everything, but not all at once. We can do everything that we really want to do in our life. We can have a successful career. We can be present mothers. We can be present wives, we can look after our health, we can do all these things, but not necessarily all in one go. Sometimes it's dividing it up a little bit so that it's manageable for us. And that's what I'm having to tell myself at the moment. Like, Helen, what's manageable and what is just an unnecessary pressure that you don't need? And so, yeah, just some tips, some insight of what I'm going through at the moment. And I certainly don't have all the answers, hence why I'm going to counseling and why I'm still dealing with a lot. And so I just want to ask two things from you guys. Firstly, to pray for me, to pray that God can sustain my health, because I definitely feel like I've been bruised and battered a little bit over the last couple of years with my health. If I feel like, I get over one hurdle and then I start getting migraines, or my migraines ease and I start, getting fatigued, and it just is a bit frustrating. So praying for good health would be really appreciated, and especially for my mental well-being, and for me to discern what God wants me to do and what he doesn't want me to do would be really appreciated. And the second thing that I really would ask you guys to share in the comments below is what kind of videos you want me to create. I'm discovering what kind of YouTube channel do I want this to be. I've been putting videos out just that are on my heart, just things that I want to share, but I'm aware that this channel doesn't necessarily have a direction yet. I'm still in the very early stages of it, and there's nothing wrong with that. We all have to start somewhere. But like I want you guys to pray for me, I also want to create content that is good and helpful and insightful for you. It's not me. I want to create this channel for you. And so if you can share in the comments below, that would be really appreciated. And I will try and create videos that you guys want to see. And I don't want to be creating content that's wasting your guys' time. We've got enough out there to waste our time. And so, I firstly just, lastly, should I say, want to say thank you for watching this video. It's definitely unscripted. I'm just on my phone, sat in the living room, but I wanted to share, as I'm aware that I've not shared in a long time. So thanks so much for watching this video. I hope that you have an amazing rest of your week. and I will see you guys shortly, I suppose. Yeah. See you later. Bye.